who wants to talk about boundaries. Yes, in honor of Cancer season, we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite things, boundaries. It's probably the number one thing that you've all been requesting to learn more about, and it's definitely one of my deep life lessons is to learn boundaries. So we're going to go over signs you may need to work on your boundaries, probably do, the different types of boundaries, how to set a boundary, and why boundaries are revolutionary for you. Okay, so ready to get started? So, does this sound like you? Do you have relationships that are incredibly one-sided? Pick up your phone right now. Is there a friend who every text message is just asking something from you or needing you, and the only thing on your side of the text bubble is helping them, or when you do have a problem, it's like crickets? Definitely a sign you need boundaries. Another sign that you need boundaries is, like, for me, I have always felt guilty, like, all the time. Guilty for not doing enough, guilty for taking time for myself. This is like a huge red alarm, ringing bells, buzzers going off that you need boundaries. Another sign that you probably could use some boundary magic in your life is just trouble saying no, feeling uncomfortable with confrontation of any sort. And of course, if you feel like you have what Oprah calls the disease to please, it's like, oh no, I don't want anyone to not like me or not be a fan of mine. So I'm just going to say yes, overextend, and exhaust myself for the sake of someone else. Usually boundary stuff starts, obviously, spoiler alert, surprise to no one, in our childhood. We're taught that that's how we give and receive love, is by, giving with no boundaries, or that it's like rude or impolite to say no or to stand up to someone or to put up that boundary. So now, as adults, we get to go back and heal that for our inner child and start the glorious, messy, complicated, uncomfortable, but very empowering work of building boundaries. So people talk about boundaries all the time, and they talk about, just saying no to someone, or a boundary, with a toxic ex. But the tricky thing about boundaries is there are many different types of boundaries you need. There are 8 boundaries I focus on in my personal practice and with my clients. And the sneaky thing is that you have to have boundaries with toxic people, with neutral people. You have to have boundaries with the content you consume. I'm going to get into that. You have to have boundaries with people you love, your husband, wife, partner, family, your best friend. You have to have boundaries with your own damn self. That's actually one of the biggest ones. So it's not just about like, oh, boundaries against a toxic friend. That's like the easy boundary. The other boundary work is more nuanced. And yeah, it takes a little bit more awareness. You guys know how I love my awareness and boundaries for everything. So we're going to get into those types of boundaries, but really I want to talk about why boundaries are revolutionary to start. Because they're not going to be fun to build boundaries in the beginning. It's going to feel super uncomfortable. You're going to feel super resistant, and you are going to worry about letting people down or losing people. Okay. I do want to remind you, anyone you lose because you set a personal boundary is probably someone the universe is relieving you from. Okay, or releasing from you anyway. So that's a big first and foremost thing. But boundaries are revolutionary because you have something magical to share with the world. You have a purpose, you have power, you have energy that is waiting to be spread to the people, projects, purpose, passion projects that really deserve that energy. And I want you to think about that like this juicy warrior energy. But it flows, and we're talking about this in Cancer season because energy is like water, that Cancer ocean energy. And you need this warrior energy, that Cancer, that shell, to protect that lover energy. Or else that lover energy and all of your energy for yourself and all of the creative and abundant and healing and transformative and revolutionary things you're meant to do in the world without boundaries, it's like taking that water of your energy and like pouring it on a table. Okay, have you ever seen like water just poured out? It's doing nothing for anyone. It's just this messy, like dripping everywhere. And then having a boundary, like water, like cups and tarot, it's meant to have a boundary. So water like this, like water in a glass like this, in a bottle, Now I can bring this water around with me. I can drink from it. I can water a plant with it. This boundary helps water be powerful, impactful, useful. And I want you to think about, as you're doing your boundary work at home, the tighter that boundary, the more powerful it's going to be. That energy, your magic, your medicine, your intuition, your psychic powers, because that's a glass bottle. But think about a tighter boundary. Now your energy is like water going through a fire hose, okay? That can cut through cement. That makes stuff happen, okay? So boundary work pays off. It's that warrior energy, protecting that lover energy. It's boundaries to be able to use your heart energy, your love, your magic, your medicine, in a really healing way that gives back to you and others, okay? Instead of just leaking out everywhere. So the types of boundaries, I'm going to go through this quickly. We have a post on our Instagram about it that goes into more depth, but I just want everyone to know that boundaries are nuanced. So I have my list here. Physical boundaries. This is an absolute must. Physical space, you and you alone get to decide who touches you, who comes near you, what you think is appropriate and not, and you have the right to consent in every moment, okay, to what you will and will not allow as a personal physical boundary. That's a big one. Intellectual boundaries, just having the rights of being free to your own opinions and beliefs and to express them and not being gaslit or persuaded or manipulated into saying that what you think is not correct, especially if it's regarding your personal lived experience. Another boundary, an emotional boundary. This is a big one. You deserve to feel like, okay, that's your emotion and my emotion is going to be over here and I can see you and I can feel for you. I don't need to feel it or take it on. Or I'm allowed to be upset. I'm allowed to be filled with grief, rage, anger in this moment and not apologize. I'm allowed to feel joy in this moment and not apologize, okay? Oof, there's so much more to say about this, but I'm going to try and be quick. Another big boundary, material boundaries. You have the right to who gets to use your stuff for how long and when. This is a big one, especially if you grew up in a big family. That one probably resonates. Conversational boundaries of conversations you do and do not want to have, and you get to say when you want to have them and when you don't, and you get to say that joke, that comment that made me uncomfortable at any given time with any person, no matter their position of authority or proximity to you. Time boundaries. This is huge, especially for you. I know my entrepreneurs, my hustlers, high vibe hustlers, my creatives, my visionaries. You have to have boundaries on your time. You need self-care time, you need workout time, you need sleep time, you need time with friends and family. It's fun to burn the midnight oil when you're passionate, but that will burn you up, burn you out, okay? That's a big one. Content boundaries, how much you're consuming, what you're consuming, at what times. This is big. And then the last boundary, the eighth boundary, is the spiritual boundary, okay? You have a right to say to your beliefs, to believe what you want to, and you also have a right to not let people's spirituality try to erase, negate, undermine, downplay your experience again, or your own beliefs. Okay, so those are the different types of boundaries. Now I'm going to give you just 3 quick steps to building a boundary, and I want you to pay attention to this. Okay, first thing with a boundary, you can be kind and you can be gracious in that boundary setting. You don't have to be a dick, okay? Because we're talking about building boundaries, not like walls, right? So the first thing, be gracious, be kind. Thank you so much for that offer. See that person, empathy. Okay, I see maybe why you said that thing to me. Thank you for taking the time to comment on that. Thank you for taking the time to invite me to that. I appreciate that feedback. That's the first thing, the gracious element. The second thing is that's where you hit them with the no. You hit them with that no, okay? That's where you come in. We are not going to beat around the bush. We are not going to speak in any unclear terms. Boundaries demand clarity and directness from us. So thank you for that invite, but I cannot make that event, but I'm going to pass. Thank you for that opinion, but I didn't ask it from you. Seriously, like this and then just no, or just no. And that's it. And then the third step, that anatomy of a boundary, is just silence. And this is the hard part for my people pleasers and for me, my chatty, very Mercury heavy chart. Even now, it's just like silence. It's very powerful. It's very uncomfortable, but that's why it's very powerful. My dear friend Colin Bedell calls it moment of discomfort and walk away. You don't need to explain yourself. And as my Aunt Steffi godmother says, you don't owe no one nothing but yourself. These are two of my Long Island gurus. You don't owe anyone an explanation after you say that no. Okay, so when you practice that silence is a very strong punctuation mark on what you're saying. So that's the anatomy of the boundary. Practice it. It's going to be super uncomfortable. You're going to mess up. It's not going to feel good. And we're going to include some posts on our Instagram about just some ways to say no in like text message, email form to practice. If you're like me, I needed a script in the beginning because that's how uncomfortable boundaries made me. But it pays off. It pays off so big. You have so much to share with the world, and you deserve a life that has space in it, that has peace in it, and that you're doing the things that really light you up, okay? And the other thing I want to say about boundaries is no is a complete sentence. If you don't want to do any of that anatomy and you just want to say no, that's enough, okay? And the other thing about boundary is we teach people about our boundaries, okay? We can't expect other people to create a boundary for us. They watch what we do, and they also watch the boundaries that we keep and create for ourselves. So like I said, with that time boundary, honoring, this is all deeply important. So I'm going to leave you with that. Let me know how this goes. I would definitely check where you have Cancer in your chart. Cancer is where we're being invited to work on our boundaries, I find. So look at that, maybe start there, and know that this is a revolution. It's helping build your sense of personal empowerment and your sense of trust in the universe, that you can pull back and not have to take on everyone's stuff, and that you'll be okay. And just as importantly, they will be okay. Okay? Boundaries empower other people too and helps build their own self-reliance. And that's why boundaries are revolutionary. Okay? Let me know in the comments how this feels to you. Let me know where you have Cancer in your chart. I love hearing it.